Hey everyone. So I hope you guys can hear me. I'm just gonna move this here for a second so I can see the chat. So, hey, JC here. Finally, after 1 year off, I'm doing this type of thing. So, first I need to explain actually what happened precisely. I was busy writing my book, and I will talk about that in more depth in a moment. But anyway, I was writing my book. Here it is. I finally got it. And well, that took a year actually to do. A year to write. And of course, a very long time before that was necessary for all the planning and stuff like that. The project itself was actually started, I believe, in 2010 when I was in Canada. And it was supposed to be a feature film script. But of course, I have no way to make a feature film. There's absolutely no money for that, so I just kind of put it to the side, and it just I was busy with other stuff, of course, other jobs as well, and eventually I decided, hey, let's turn it into a book, and that's what I did. So I'll talk about that more in a moment. So what happened was I was busy with the book, and when I'm doing this type of big project, I really can't focus on the podcast at all. So that happened, and technically the book was finished in late June or so, I think. But I also got very sick at the end of June, and that just kept me out for until quite recently, actually, until a couple of weeks ago. What's wrong with me? Well, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's a stomach problem, and one day I feel a lot of nausea, or the other day I feel kind of strong cramps. There was not one day, even in those past 3 or 4 months, when I had a day which was okay. So every day I feel bad. And eventually, after all this time, we decided, hey, we should do a blood test and to check it out. So a lot of people might laugh at that because, hey, it's just a blood test, right? Nothing going to happen to you. Well, unfortunately, I'm a unique case. So I have this problem, and I'm not a doctor, but it's actually a real thing. And I'll just read it here. Hey James, hey bro, how's it going? So I'm just going to read it here because I'm not a doctor, so I don't really understand the detail. But this is a reaction to needles, okay, to injections. So what it says here is that, so this is a phobia technically, but although most phobias are dangerous to some degree, needle phobia is one of the few that actually kill. In cases of severe phobia, the drop in blood pressure caused by the vasovagal shock reflex may cause death. In Hamilton's 95 review article on needle phobia, he was able to document 23 deaths as a direct result of vasovagal shock during a needle procedure. And this is exactly what happens to me. So what happens is that I get this injection or a blood test. It doesn't seem to matter in my case. And at first, there is not much. I mean, of course, I feel the sting, but that's pretty regular. And then suddenly, after maybe 10, 20, 30 seconds at most, I can actually start hearing my heartbeat, like really, really loud. It's like it's resonating all over my body. Eventually, my brain is like, okay, I can't take this pain anymore. So it just switches off. It just goes away. So of course, naturally, the first thing that happens is that I faint. But as I just read you, in more extreme cases, and that's also my case, unfortunately, it can cause the heart to stop. And as you all know, after a couple of minutes, the lack of oxygen to the brain can actually lead to death. So since 95, it documented 23 deaths. I could easily have been the 24th, I'm telling you. So anyway, that's the reason why the show was on hold. I feel a little bit better recently, so I hope to get back into the rhythm, I guess. Okay, so now two more things I'd like to talk about. Well, first of all, I want to go back to the book. So here it is, once again, so Beyond the Obscure. This is a really cool book, and I'm not saying it because I wrote it, because that would be narcissistic at best. But what I do is that I try to avoid reading other books. I try to avoid watching too many TV shows and stuff like that, because as people we are very easily influenced by things, and so if I watch something, then I'm like easily I want to copy it basically, and that's never a good attitude. So I try to stay away and try to be as neutral as possible in my work. So that means that I have to do more research. I have to really look outside of the box, which is not easy to do. And so this book again started in 2010, more or less, converted into a book over a period of 1 year. It's a pretty short book. It only has about 100 pages, and that includes pictures, so it's even less than that. And I'll drop the links in the comment section. You can get it. You can get a print version, and there's ebook available as well. From the print version, I actually get almost nothing. I get maybe 40 cents a copy. So I'm not. This is not to make money, okay? You're not gonna make a lot of money. I make more from ebooks, to be honest. And just very briefly, the story is about a broken family in a setting that's very loosely inspired by the 1940s and 50s, I guess late 40s and 50s. So it doesn't take place on planet Earth, and this is important because I want to mention something later. So in the story, so you have this broken family, and the main character's wife, Sarah, basically takes off to another town, and she steals a very important amulet from Alex, the main character. And he goes after her, but he gets stuck in this town. So there's a time element, time bubble element in the story. They get stuck there, and but they do have a daughter together, and the daughter, of course, is outside of that bubble. So eventually, like, she gets this, phone call from her dad, and she goes there, and then she gets stuck as well. But of course, they will find the answer. But there's a lot of stuff that happens. It's pretty. It's obviously a unique book. Everything I try to do, I try to make it as unique as possible. I think I try to stay away from mainstream generic nonsense. That's kind of my selling point. So anyway, you can get it in the US. The shipping is very reasonable. Unfortunately, international shipping is extremely expensive, and I had to find out the hard way, because for the cover itself, I wasn't sure how the colors look, and the company can't just print the cover. They have to print the whole thing and then send it to me. So yeah, I was in for 2 books, full shipping fees, not fun at all. But anyway, I'm very happy with the final result. And what else have been doing? Well, in the summer, usually I don't do the podcast either way, because it just gets too hot outside in Japan, and I don't have the patience to do anything. So I tend to study a lot, and I go to those Coursera pages. You can probably see it around here. I love these things because they are kind of compressed courses, and you can learn a lot of stuff. And recently I've been a lot into astronomy. So this one course in particular was called Confronting the Big Questions, Highlights of Modern Astronomy. Very good course, by the way. I'm not sure if I learned like many new things, because as I say, I study these type of things almost daily. But it was very well structured, and the quizzes were very complicated actually. It was kind of interesting because you take the lectures and then there's a quiz, but I found a lot of the times that the quiz had questions which were definitely not covered in the lectures. So you had to do a lot of research on your own, which I thought was really great. I mean, that's the point. You're supposed to educate yourself outside of what the tiny lectures give you. So anyway, now I just wanted to address the podcast itself because recently there was a bit of fighting going on over some bans. And so what I'd like to explain a few things. First of all, the page Age of Reason exists for really one purpose, and I think a lot of people don't understand this purpose, so I just want to explain it one more time today. Okay, so the page exists mainly to promote the podcast and to sell the merchandise that is associated either to the podcast or just to my independent production company, just like the book I showed a while ago. It's all kind of part of the same package. So, of course, you'd notice that on the page, most of the content is articles, memes. By the way, it's very difficult to find good articles, and well, the memes is a different story, but the articles themselves, I'm connected to people who are very close to astronomy or very close to climate change. I mean, I interviewed a climate scientist before on the show. So the articles that I share hopefully are already like verified. They're not just random articles. Because you see, when I started the show, the entire purpose was to post content that is already checked, so that people don't have to go and basically double check it. Of course, you should always double, triple check everything. But I know that most people don't have the time to do that. It's annoying to do that. So that was the whole point, that I will already give you the articles that are checked. So I do a lot of work in the background, and I'm not getting any money from it. Of course, it's all volunteer, on a volunteer basis. So regarding the recent bans, the people have to understand that this is my page. So if I don't like something, if I happen to be in a bad mood on that day, and I block a couple of people, then that's life. That's gonna happen. We're all human. But usually the bans, they come as a result of bad behavior, of demonstrably bad behavior that I can, if you want me to take screenshots of every single problem, I can do that. It's absolutely no issue whatsoever. When people display open bigotry, for example, that is not okay. That is not gonna sit well. So I know this one person was saying, hey, it's like it should be free speech. Yeah, but free speech is one of those things. If you say free speech, but if you say it like this form, it means that already you are kind of rejecting certain parts you don't want to hear, maybe. So that's not free speech then. Free speech means that anything goes. But of course, you're responsible for your words. So then you're responsible for the consequence of your words. Again, this is my page. This is not the way that I envisioned it. This is not the way that I wanted to run it. So there are certain things that I just don't think is okay. And if it's really not okay, then it will be you'll get banned. But this thing was, the whole project was started, I think, in mid 2012, if I'm not wrong. Okay, maybe 2013. It's been 5-6 years. The number of bans is so tiny, actually. You'd be surprised. Probably on my screen it just fills one page. That's all. That's really nothing for 5 or 6 years. I'm pretty sure pages like Atheist Republic or other pages, they ban people on a daily basis, I guess. I don't. So Um, to go into the structure of the show, the way that, if you watch the podcast, and again, the page exists mostly for that. So again, those people who complain, I really doubt that they know the link to the podcast, the link to the merchandise, the link to any of my works, which is the entire point of the page. Sorry. Anyway, the structure of the show in the future editions is not going to change much. The way that it happens is that we talk about the Bible. I read it, I select passages, and we talk about it. Why the Bible? Why not other religions? Well, you'll see that on the page. The memes will sometimes criticize all religions. I certainly do. It's not a problem. It's just I'm not very familiar with Islam or Buddhism or other religions so much. More familiar with Christianity. And since the show is marketed to the US, we suffer mostly from Christianity, unfortunately. So we should talk about that more. So anyway, we do the Bible first, then usually it's a section which is usually of my choosing, but not necessarily. We can discuss politics or anything else that I find relevant and interesting for the episode. And then usually we finish with a video review. So again, it can be anything. Usually it's some kind of religious nuts, and we just comment on that, whatever goes. But anyway, I just wanted to repeat one more time, the purpose of the show is, purpose of the page on Facebook is the podcast, and it's not the articles and the memes. The articles and the memes are the filler. The podcast is the main thing, and of course the merchandise as well. Well, anyway, today was just the first kind of update. I had a lot of work to do today to set it all up, so it's a bit longer than usual. What I want to do in the future episodes of this particular thing, so Age of Reason News, is actually there's a couple of different things I can do, and I'm open to suggestions. Well, first of all, you're free to ask me questions on YouTube Live. That's always acceptable. I always keep an eye on the chat there, but sometimes I don't, so sorry if I reply a little bit late. Of course, there are articles and memes I post on a almost daily basis, except Thursday, because I noticed Thursdays for some reason people don't really. I mean, I as an admin, I have access to certain data that you guys don't see, so I noticed that Thursday for some reason not so popular, so I tend to not post on Thursdays. But still, Monday to Wednesday and then Friday, there's a lot of articles posted. What I would like to do is maybe do a kind of best of every week, and so because I don't have much time to comment on the articles during the week, so maybe I can talk about them in more depth in these type of videos. And I'm especially interested in climate change. This is a big issue recently, and recently I shouldn't even say that. That's totally wrong. It's been an issue since. I mean, I've heard about it since I was in high school. You know, when my teacher was saying that, hey, in the near future we're gonna have wars over food. We're gonna have wars over water, like nearby villages fighting for water. And I'm like, come on, dude, that's not real. And I think most people, unfortunately, have this reaction. They think, hey, it's not real. And now we're there. And it took 10, 20 years only, which, you know, things change so slowly. Usually you have a piece of legislation that takes years to go through all the process, and then maybe it just gets rejected anyway. 10, 20 years of our lifetime, and then things so drastically change. I just don't think people can really put it in their brain that perhaps in my, I'm only 35. In my lifetime, it might be the Hunger Games, basically. So that's a scary reality, but that's the reality that we live in. So anyway, I would like to talk more about this type of stuff, but today was just the first episode. I hope I explained everything. If you have any more questions about, how I want to manage the page or whatever, please don't be afraid to ask. I will post all the links to the merchandise in the comment section, so do check it out. It will help me a lot with the book in particular. I do have a spiritual sequel in my mind. It's mostly actually written again as a feature script. Just one moment. Shit. You're a troublemaker. You're such a troublemaker. Come on, go away. Alright, sorry about that. Just got cats, so I have to take care of them. Yeah, anyway, so I was just saying there is a spiritual sequel planned. And, well, yeah, that's the thing. So I would like people to read this book. That's the whole point why I wrote it. I'm not writing this because, I want to have something to do. This is meant to be read by people. Ideally, I would like to sell between 500 and 1,000 copies of this. You might ask me, okay, so why actually should I read this? Why? I mean, I have lots of other things to read. Well, as I wrote in my FAQ before, nobody starts as a Stephen King or Michael Crichton or something like that. You have to start somewhere. My experience mostly is as a filmmaker. Since 2006, I've been an independent filmmaker. I've won some awards. I actually made a religious documentary on religions, which, again, I really doubt that people even know where it is. So that's you see, that's what I've been saying. This is what kind of frustrates me about this whole thing, is that it seems to me that the page has become mostly about the funny memes and the funny articles or the interesting articles. And I would like to just be blunt here. All the likes and shares is perhaps good for you, but for me, it does absolutely nothing. That's just the reality of things. So, I have to be honest. I mean, this is how I want to run this business. So, anyway, check out the book. Links are in the description. Sequel is on the way. I would like to sell enough copies of this to start work on the other thing. Otherwise, there's just not much point, really. I mean, I will waste 1 or 2 years of my life. It takes a long time to write these things, even if they are only 100 pages long. It takes a lot of time. I just could use my time for other things. That's the reality. But I would like to write it. Of course, it's a very interesting story. There's a lot of stuff that happens in it, and it's a very different story. Related, of course, but different. Anyway, check it out. I appreciate your support. If you do get it, and you have any feedback, please give me. Even if it's negative, look, whatever, maybe it's not your cup of tea. Maybe you noticed something that I overlooked. That's always interesting. Anyway, for today, that's all, because I have other things to do. One of the things I'm working on right now is, of course, I'd like to do these type of things on a weekly basis, but I'm in the process of finishing editing a short film I made, a long time ago. I guess it was finished in 2007 or something, but what happened actually back then is that it was shot on tapes. Believe it or not, back then tapes were used, not SD cards. And by accident, I taped over the very ending. And then there was a whole bunch of issues. I was just unable to get the ending. Then I noticed some other issues. So I was able to reshoot the ending here with a body double. And she also was kind enough to do the voiceovers, actually. That was nice. That's the thing. I was missing the voiceovers too. So yeah, she was able to do that. The voices are pretty similar, so I was able to use that without too much problem. Um, and then that's it. Man, it's like a movie 11 years in the making. But anyway, I finally exported it yesterday. So now I'm gonna go watch it because this is the last check really I have to do before it's done. Uh, People will not, it's not available to the public because film festival rules. Film festivals are quite annoying. I mean, they annoy me for sure. First of all, I have to pay them, and there is, of course, no guarantee that you get anything. So that's a great business, isn't it? Imagine that you get a submit. Let's say you have 500. Let's use a simple number even. Let's say you have 100 submissions, but for each submission you charge $20, but you only get one winner. And by the way, there's no guarantee that there's no money prize for most of them. I only won like once, as far as I remember. And what I won, that little prize, just basically covered my submission fee. So it's not, it doesn't feel like much success anyway. But yeah, so they charge money. So imagine you have 100 submissions, $20 each. You have only one winner. You can calculate how much money these guys are making. I'm not saying it's illegal, of course. You know, it's the way that it works. But man, it's a great moneymaker. So film festival rules often state that you can't premiere your work. It can't be public while it's in that circuit. So I don't know when it will be available to you guys. Maybe in 2020 or something like that. So anyway, I'm gonna get to that because that has to be done today. I'd like to finish it as soon as possible, really. And well, I'll see you next time, guys.